Did folks get a little pop-up that said recording? Okay, great. So the full recording is going to be shared with attendees of this webinar and also with the California Food Hub Network listserv. And then what we're going to do is cut just the first part of the webinar. So the CCOF presentation will be shared publicly on the UC SAREP website and YouTube channel. So the Q&A at the end won't be shared broadly or publicly. And then just a reminder to mute yourself so we don't catch background noise. And sharing too, this webinar was organized in partnership with the University of California Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program and the Community Alliance with Family Farmers. The training is provided by support from the Southwest Regional Food Business Center Cooperative Agreement. And Jennifer, can you go to the next slide? So we encourage you to prepare questions and hold them for the Q&A session, and that will take place after a presentation on SOE from CCOF, which is the certifying agency in California. We will be prioritizing questions directly from food hubs. So if you're not a food hub operator or employee, we ask that you just hold your questions until food hubs have had a chance to ask theirs. We will share links and resources after the webinar has finished in a follow-up email, and we'll plan on sharing everyone's contact information in a follow-up email. So if you don't want your email to be included in that, just let me know. And my email is going to be pasted in the chat for that. Perfect. So this is going to be a really quick webinar. It's 1 hour. We ask that you complete a short evaluation at the end of the webinar. We'll share that link then. This evaluation helps us understand how we did, report to our funders, and gives you a chance to provide feedback on other topics, including SOE, that you would like covered in the future regarding food hubs. Next slide. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Alicia Baddorf. I'm the Sustainable Supply Chain Coordinator at UC SAREP. SAREP conducts research and education in support of ag and food systems that are economically viable, conserve natural resources and biodiversity, and enhance the quality of life and equity in the state's urban, rural, and tribal communities. So the California Food Hub Network, oh, actually, could you go to the next slide, Jennifer? Thank you. So the California Food Hub Network is a learning network to coordinate technical assistance, collaborative learning, and information sharing for and among food hubs in California. Activities include in-person convenings, networking, food hub tours, and technical assistance on a broad array of topics related to food hub operations. And the next slide. And I wanted to share because I know there's some folks that aren't necessarily representing a food hub. This is the kind of common USDA definition of a food hub. So aggregating, storing, maybe processing, distributing locally or regionally grown food products. I also recognize that there's a lot of diversity in food hubs. And yeah, in the next slide. So I want to share a couple more things and then I'll hand it over to Jennifer. To get involved in the California Food Hub Network, go ahead and sign up at this link for the listserv that's in the chat. If you aren't already part of the listserv, there's lots of great communications on that platform. And then to get your food hub on our food hub map online, we're also sharing a link to do that if you're not already up there. So I'll hand it over to Jennifer to speak about CAF.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Nunez, Farm to Market Coordinator for CAF. My work aims more like towards working. My work aims to help BIPOC farmers find new markets, channels, and just really meeting the farmer where he's at. But who is CAF? So CAF stands for Community Alliance with Family Farms and is a nonprofit based in California. Our mission is to build sustainable food and farming systems. One critical aspect of that mission involves the establishment of and support of food hubs. These food hubs serve as vital connectors within our agricultural landscape. And some ways that we achieve this work is through the following programs, which would be the farm to market. This program, we collectively facilitate and connect the connections between farmers and markets, and one of them being food hub networks, of course. And then our other program that helps a lot on this work is the Small Farm Tech Hub. The Small Tech Hub provides technical resources to enhance efficiency of small scale farmers, including new food hubs. And another area that really does a lot of work with food hubs and their farmers is the food safety and their organic TA provided by Grace. And we're hopefully adding in a lot of more people to this work as well. But a lot of the work they do is through these programs. They provide guidance to farmers and food hubs on food safety practices and path to organic certification. Other work that CAF does is also policy at ecological farming and wildfire resistance. Some of if you guys do need help with organic certification, me and Grace both help out. Grace is more statewide, and then I'm based in the San Joaquin Valley, so I'm working in the counties of Merced, Madera, Fresno, and Tulare and Kings. I think Kern might be an option too, but yeah. So here are our numbers and our emails if you need any assistance. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce CCOF. CCOF is a nonprofit organized that advances organic agriculture for a healthy world through organic certification, education, advocacy, and promotion. CCOF is one of the many accredited organic certification agencies. We will drop a link in the chat that lists accredited certifier agencies that you can register within California, the state of California organic program, and the link was dropped in the chat right now. But here's a little bio of the two presenters that we have today with us. Our first presenter is Kim, who joined CCOF in 2017 and currently acts as the application support supervisor. Applying her education in sustainable agriculture and experience working on organic farms, Kim and her team help provide producers to understand organic regulations and the certification process. And we also have Jane Wade, who is the CCOF Senior Application Specialist. She has been at CCOF since 2009 and in the application support role since 2011. Before coming to CCOF, she managed nonprofit organizations and worked in public radio. Jane comes from a family farm in California and is native to California and gets a lot of great pleasure from working with the agriculture community. I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to Kim and Jane.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jennifer. Thank you to our hosts and thank you to all of you for showing up today. I love how well attended this is, and I really look forward to the Q&A session at the end. With that, we will move a little quickly through the slides. I'll do kind of a high-level overview, and hopefully that really inspires lots of questions that are specific to your operations so we can really answer your unique scenario. So let's jump to the next slide. Strengthening organic enforcement is what we'll talk about, but to do a quick intro for CCOF, we are the largest and one of the oldest certifiers in North America. We certify throughout the US, Canada, and Mexico. We have a host of service-oriented certification services, organic being one of them. We also do regenerative, food safety, and a few others. And in addition to that, we have a 501c3 foundation that works on educational offerings, grants, and then a policy team that advocates on behalf of our members. And then Jennifer already did a great introduction for us. So on the next slide, beginning to see our faces. Jane and I have worked in these roles for quite some time. We really look forward to, like I said, your unique questions and scenarios and how we can help you through this. It's what our team does on a day-to-day basis. We are separate branch of CCOF, so we can work in this advising space and give you a little more support than is allowed under the certification branch. And we don't have any impact on currently certified clients, so please feel welcome to, speak openly. We're really here to support you in this regulation change, not really here from a compliance regulatory perspective. We work in a separate branch. Jane, would you like to say hi before we dive into the content?
Sure. It's really nice to have you all here. Food hubs have been kind of a catch-22 for a while, so we're glad to be able to answer your questions and help you get connected with the broader organic community.
All righty. And with that, let's dive in. On the next slide. So, strengthening organic enforcement. Where did this come from? Where are we going? The USDA NOP, the federal body that oversees the organic regulations, published the final version of this rule earlier this year. It is the largest change to the organic regulations since their creation. So, big changes for currently certified clients, for certifiers, and for the entire rest of the organic network. The goals of for strengthening organic enforcement is really at a baseline, it's to protect the integrity of organic products. And the things you see here on the slide will be achieved when it's fully implemented. Today, we're going to focus on just one little section of the overall rule, and that's the definition of handling and how that impacts previously uncertified operations. So with the next slide, to review some definitions. So prior to strengthening organic enforcement, handling really only included operations that touched, packaged, or labeled organic products. So those were the folks that were required to be certified organic. With the new regulations, they're expanding that definition to also include buy, sell, or facilitate the sale or trade of organic products. The reason for this is the USDA NOP saw gaps in the previous regulations for organic fraud, and that they're expanding the definition to fill in those gaps. So operations like brokers, traders, storage facilities, private label owners, importers, exporters, and potentially food hubs are impacted. And impacted operations will need to be certified by March 19th, 2024 in order to remain in compliance. So with the next slide, let's dive into food hubs specifically. I'm going to talk for quite a while on this slide. I really encourage you to jot down your questions as we go through these. This will be a high-level summary of how we view food hubs and how certain activities that might occur at food hubs are impacted by strengthening organic enforcement and the organic regulations as a whole. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to the very valuable service you offer your communities and your farmers and your organic farmers. We really want to make this as accessible and easy to digest as possible because we recognize the value that you're bringing to your communities. So we appreciate you. From a certification perspective, there's different activities at food hubs, and I'm going to start at the most hands-on that absolutely requires certification, and then I'm going to go step back, step back, step back. So most intense that absolutely must be certified, and then the ifs and the maybes. So food hubs that absolutely must be certified include those that handle organic products. So that means repacking, relabeling, potentially opening boxes to do quality control. Those activities would require certification for that product to then be sold with an organic claim. I know I mentioned opening for quality control. If your food hub remains uncertified and you do that, those boxes that you open would need to be sold as conventional. So repack, relabel, anything that's really hands-on, touch, package, label with the organic product would need to be done in a certified facility. Now to go a step back from that, some food hubs may be acting as distributors. So maybe it's a box in, box out, not quite as hands-on. There's no touch, package, relabel. That activity would depend on the product packaging. And we'll get into that in quite a bit more detail in the coming slides, but there is a possibility that the act of distribution, like I said, pallet in, pallet out, box in, box out, could remain exempt under the new rules, depending on product packaging. Just as a disclaimer, in both of those scenarios, we're not considering food hubs to be storage facilities. So we are thinking in terms of you're taking ownership of the product, you're buying and selling it. If you're not taking ownership and you're not arranging for the sale of organic product, you would be more in that storage facility definition. So take note of that, and we can talk about that in more detail in the Q&A. But for the rest of this presentation and for what you see here on the slide, we are thinking of food hubs as taking ownership or facilitating the sale of the organic product. Now for the exceptions. There can be retail components of food hubs, and those were previously exempt before so, and they would remain exempt after so. So what do I mean by retail? Really, it means that you have a storefront, maybe a farm stand or a market or some physical brick and mortar location where you're putting the produce or the organic item for sale, and the customer comes in and buys it. So that portion would remain exempt. It would not require certification. And all of the activities preparing the product for that retail setting, like the unpackaging, stacking, labeling, putting it on the shelf, all of those would also remain exempt. The key there is it must be a physical location that you own where folks come in to purchase the product. One additional caveat that could also remain exempt is if you had maybe a subscription-based box where folks, again, come into your setting to pick it up and purchase it. That too could potentially remain exempt under the new regulations. The caveat on all of these is thinking about your overall need for certification. So if you only have that subscription-based box, then it would probably be a good option to keep it exempt and to not pursue certification. If that's just a piece of what you do, say you do the subscription-based box, but you also do distribution on a larger scale, you do the repackage, relabel, processing side of things, I would probably recommend certifying that subscription-based box for your record-keeping systems. So I'll stop there. And again, I encourage you to jot down your questions based on how your unique operation fits into this definition. And we'd love to talk about that in more detail during the Q&A session. So to recap, because I said quite a bit, touch package label must be certified unless it's occurring in a retail setting, like a farm stand or a market. And box in, box out distribution, where no touch package relabel is occurring, really depends on product packaging. So with our next slide, we'll discuss product packaging. So under the pretense that this is box in, box out, only sealed, tamper-evident retail packaging remains exempt. So the buying and selling or facilitating the sale of organic products really depends on this phrase, and this is pulled directly from the USDA regulations. So sealed, tamper-evident means that the contents are sealed in a manner where an attempt to break the seal, access the contents, or reclose the package would be obvious. And then retail is a set of USDA defined regulations that we'll get into in a few slides, but it's the combination of these two elements that could keep your certification exempt from certification. Yeah, we'll stop there and we'll go to the next slide and look at a few examples. So I won't read all of these. The first two are geared more towards fresh produce, which I think will be most applicable to this group. But it's really the idea that if you have a clamshell or a container, there needs to be a sticker or tape closing the lid in a way that it would show signs of tampering if it were opened. Maybe you have a plastic zip top or mesh produce bag. Those two would have that rip away strip or something like that that would show signs of tampering. And then as you move farther down the slide, you can see more of the processed product ideas. Again, retail labeled, sealed, and tamper evident being the only ones that can remain exempt from certification. You can note on this slide that sealed and tamper evident does not mean impermeable to gas or water. So it doesn't need to be airtight. It just needs to be secured in a fashion where the packaging would show signs of tampering if opened. So on the next slide, we'll see a few examples of things that are not sealed and tamper evident. The apples on this slide could easily be removed from the little encasement. No signs of seal or tampering if opened. Same with the egg carton, it would need the addition of some type of sticker or tape. And the same is true of the blueberry carton, would need an additional layer of tamper evident packaging in order to be considered exempt from certification. A few more examples would maybe be a loaf of bread that has a clip or a twist tie that could be removed, zip top produce bags that don't have that sticker or strip, or maybe a mesh bag of potatoes or onions. Those would all be with just a twist tie that could easily be removed without showing signs of damage or opening the package. And then on the next slide, we'll talk a bit about retail labeling. So again, this is dictated by the USDA. The 3 bullet points here on this slide are what we'd be looking for in order to define retail packaging. It would be the presence of the USDA and or certifier seal, the certified organic by statement that shows the certifier that last reviewed the product, and then identifying organic ingredients. Generally speaking, it just means that the packaging is intended to go home with the consumer. It's ready for the final stage of the production chain. On the next slide, we'll see a few examples of this. On the left-hand side, you can see the certified organic by CCOF statement underneath the company information. And then on the right-hand side, you can see an example of designating the organic ingredients within that product. On the next slide, I won't read all these in the interest of time. I won't read all these out, but these are just the inverse of what we previously covered. So examples that are not sealed and tamper evident retail labeling, and these slides will be distributed, so feel free to read them in detail, but just driving home the point that sealed retail tamper evident packaging is what would be excluded from certification, what can be excluded from certification. Oh, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. These are all examples that are both sealed and tamper evident. Oopsies. On the next slide after this, we have examples that are not sealed. If we want to switch to the next slide, there we go. Again, my apologies. These are all just for your review when you want to sit with these slides. Lots of examples of things that are and are not sealed retail tamper evident packaging. And again, if something comes to mind that's not included in these slides, happy to talk about it during the Q&A. So on the next slide, just to recap before I hand the mic over to Jane, products that are touched, processed, packaged, labeled, or relabeled must be done in a certified facility unless they are done in conjunction with that retail setting. Products that are bought and sold, but not touched, packaged, labeled, so more distributed, box in, box out, those depend on sealed, tamper evident retail packaging. If they are in sealed, tamper evident retail packaging, they can be excluded from certification. If they are not, they require certification. And all of this needs to be met by March 19th, 2024. And with that, hopefully I haven't confused anyone too thoroughly. I will hand the microphone over to Jane, and she'll give us an overview of the certification process.
Yeah, before I get into this, I want to kind of clarify one thing that's just an expansion on what Kim has already said. What we're looking at here is risk assessment in the supply chain. And the reason that the retail label product is not required to be further certified is because it's at the end of the supply chain. The presumption is it's going to find its way onto the store shelf and be taken home by a consumer. Anything else ends up in the middle of the supply chain. So if you are moving product to a grocery store or a co-op, you are a wholesale supplier. You are in the middle of the supply chain. And that's where the exemption no longer blanket applies, and all of the conditions of how it's handled, how it's labeled, how it's packaged applied. So what we're hoping to do by the end of today is have each of you understand where you fit in that supply chain. And that will give you a sense of what is required of you. Okay, so if we can have the next slide, the process overview slide, great. Okay, so the way the process works is that you submit an application that's called an organic system plan. And you're telling us what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you're using to do it with. So you're telling us about your suppliers, you're telling us about your facility, and you're telling us about your record keeping. Record keeping is a big part of organic production or organic certification, because that's how product is tracked from your supplier to your customer. And your supplier is a previous link in that organic chain. Your customer may very well be the next link in the chain, especially if they are making a processed product and using the product you're selling as an ingredient. Once you've submitted that, it's going to be reviewed by a senior certification specialist who is going to, if necessary, work with you to get a clear understanding of what it is that you're doing, so that we have a clear representation on paper of your processes and what you source. At that point, it will be sent to an inspector who will reach out to you and schedule the inspection. And what the inspector is going to be doing is confirming that what you told us and what we determined during that previous review process is what you're actually doing. And they are going to also make sure that your record keeping system is going to track the product adequately, so that if there's ever a recall, say 2 or 3 links down the organic chain, when it comes back through your link in the chain, it can be tracked back to your source. So we're going from each customer to each source when you're within that link in the chain. They'll do that on-site inspection, and then they'll write a report. The report gets reviewed, and then another senior certification specialist will grant your certification decision. And that's the process that we need to get through between now and April 19th. That we're all struggling to get everybody who's required into that process. And then every year, every calendar year every CCOF certified client is on a calendar year contract. So your anniversary date is January 1. I don't know, there's December 31st or January 1 technically, but it's at the end of the year. It doesn't change. And renewals go out each year in November. And I think I'm going to check Kim's notes here real quick and see if I missed anything. Oh, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about equipment. The inspector will be looking at your equipment while they're there. If you have equipment that you're doing any processing, they're going to be looking for things. If you're handling both organic and conventional, they're going to be looking at whether you have adequate systems in place to keep those separate. The keywords are no commingling, no cross-contamination, and that's what they will be looking for. And then again, they'll be looking at your records. We can go to the next slide. Let me go to the next, great. Okay, so the pieces of what your application or your organic system plan is the products that need certification. So this is what you source. This is certified, you're accessing certified organic product and you're bringing it into your operation, and we want to continue that certification. So we're going to make sure that we understand what you're sourcing, who it's coming from, who your suppliers are. On that, we're going to have supplier certificates. So you're going to get used to collecting organic certificates from anyone that you buy product from. Then we're going to ask you about your facility and how products are handled in that facility and the practices that you use to prevent the commingling and cross-contamination. We're going to look at pest control activities, and pest control in this case applies to parts of your operation where food is handled or stored. So we're not looking at the outside of the building. We're not looking at the break room. We're looking at where you are handling or storing actual organic product. And then the record keeping is going to require full traceability, and you're probably already pretty familiar with traceability because that's what happens in recalls, and most food handlers get that beaten into them. But the in-out balance is a little different, and that's where the inspector at your annual inspections, not your first one, because you won't have had any certified organic activity at that first inspection. But after at the first inspection, they've determined that you have an adequate record keeping system. Then when they come back next year to do your annual inspection, they'll be able to look at your records and they'll be able to confirm how much product of any particular type you brought in and how much product you sold. And you never should be in a situation that you are selling more product that you sold as organic than you brought in as organic. And that's what in-out balance is, sometimes also called mass balance. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so cost. There are three basic fees for certification with CCOF. There's an application fee, there's an annual fee, and there's an inspection fee. The normal application fee is $350. That's one time. We are doing a discount right now for reducing that to $200 if you get your application in by the end of this month, by the end of December. So December 31st. Don't worry about our vacation. If you get it in the door while we are on vacation between Christmas and New Year's, we will know when it came in the door and we will date it on that date. So you will get that exception if you get it in before the end of the month. The annual certification fee is a little tricky, and we can talk a little more about this later if you have questions, but it's based on essentially gross sales of the organic products minus the cost of goods. So if you are buying organic product from the farmer and selling it on, then it's going to be the difference between what you paid for it and what you sold it for. And you can find, if you go on our website at ccof.org and put fees, F-E-E-S, in the search bar and scroll to the organic certification fees page and click on that link and then scroll to the very bottom of the page, there's a chart. And that shows you what the fees do. The base fee is $750 a year. And if Congress will hurry up and get the Farm Bill passed and include the cost share program, you'll be able to get reimbursed up to $750 each year for the next 5 years. It's up to 3/4 of your fees not to exceed $750. So with your annual fee of $750 and your inspection fee, you're pretty much going to be able to get that $750 back no matter what. And just as a kind of a sidebar, if you want to help make this move forward and you're willing to make a quick phone call to your local member of Congress and let them know and see if, I'm talking about the local office, not their Washington office, their local constituent office. And especially if they have someone in that office who works with agricultural issues, reach out to them and say that you really want the congressman or congresswoman to hurry up and get the Farm Bill passed and to make sure that the organic cost share program is included. A lot of members of Congress don't realize how many organic operations they have in their districts, and it really helps them to get nudged in this way. So that's just kind of my political pitch for the day, which is really a financial pitch for the day. There is other ways that this fee might be determined for your operations depending on what you're doing. If you are paid a fee by the farmers, if every farmer pays you, 5% of what they get for the cost for the sale of their product or whatever, that fee would be your organic production value. That would be what your annual fee would be based on. I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. Oh, things like if you have a subscription box, then the fee that you get paid for that subscription box for the organic product in the box minus what you paid for that product would also be included as part of your gross sales minus cost of goods. Food hubs are just a little different because you're doing so many different activities. The inspection be based on time and travel. We One of the advantages of having all of our clients on a calendar year contract is that we can schedule inspections beginning at the beginning of the year, group them together, and share travel costs. So we end up usually with our inspection fees not real expensive. If you're budgeting, and I always overestimate this because I'd rather tell you too much than too little, I would budget $800 for your inspection. Might not be that much, but that way any surprises will be good ones. So that's how the fees work. And let's see what's next. Can we have the next slide? Okay, we have resources. The CCOF website has a dedicated SOE webpage that answers lots of questions. We have YouTube series list of videos that Kim put together that are really terrific and that are especially good on the tamper evident packaging. So if you're interested in seeing visualizations of what that looks like. The exempt handler affidavit is a form that we use if you were sourcing from a supplier who was not certified, you would be asked to have them complete this form. If you are selling to a CCOF certified operation of any kind, whether it's Whole Food Market who certifies all their stores, or someone who's further distributing or is using your ingredients in a product that they are labeling as organic, they might ask you to fill out this exempt handler form if you are not already certified. This allows us to determine where under the new SO rule you fit and whether you are required to be certified or your supplier is required to be certified. So you might come across the exempt handler affidavit. We also have an organic self-assessment, a flow chart on the website. Then it's essentially, if you do this, then you need to be certified. If you do this, but you don't do that, then maybe you don't need to be certified. And it lets you kind of track what it is that you do. And let's go to the next page, the next slide. Okay. So the people who need to be certified is anybody who's marketing non-retail labeled or packaged organic product. Companies buying, selling organic products that are not retail labeled or unpackaged will need to be certified as soon as possible. All marketers who buy or sell organic products that are not in sealed tamper evident retail packaging have to be certified. Becoming fully certified requires up to 12 weeks, so you need to keep that in mind. We're trying really hard to not have to charge people for expedited fees, so we're trying to get everybody in as quickly as possible. And we are offering the discount on the application fee if you get the information in before the end of the month. And you can always reach me, Kim, and our partner, Marley Allard, at getcertified@ccof.org, or you can call our main line, which is 831-423-2263, extension 1. And whoever's taking calls that day will will answer your questions.
Thank you for watching this webinar. If you would like additional information, you can visit the websites for the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program, California Certified Organic Farmers, and the Community Alliance with Family Farmers, which are listed in this slide and in the video description.